You may have a few questions at this point, like how do I know which pentatonic scale to play when? Or how do I know which notes of the scale to play? Or what do I do with minor chords? I hope to answer those questions in the next few videos. First, what I'd like to do is go over two concepts from music theory. The first is the idea of the types of chords that you find in a major key, and the other is the idea of relative major and minor keys, scales, and chords. First, I want to look at the major scale and the chords that can be found within the major scale. I'm going to play a C major scale because it's an easy scale to work with. It involves just the white keys on a piano. Each note of the scale has a degree number. So the first note of the scale is the first degree, the second is the second degree, and so on and so forth. On a piano, moving up two keys is moving up one whole tone. So for instance, if my first note is here, I go up two keys, 1, 2. This note is one whole tone higher than this note. Moving up one key is one semitone or one half tone, from here to here. In the major scale, the second degree is always one whole tone up from the first degree. The third degree is one whole tone higher than the second degree. The fourth degree is always one semitone higher than the third degree. The fifth degree is always one whole tone up from the fourth degree. The sixth degree is always one whole tone up from the fifth degree. The seventh degree is always one whole tone up from the sixth degree. And the octave is always one semitone up from the seventh degree. Whole tone, semitone, whole tone, whole tone, whole tone, semitone. Remember that on a guitar, each fret is one semitone or half tone higher than the previous note. So if, for example, I wanted to play an F major scale, I could play F on the first fret of the sixth string, and then the second degree of the scale would be 2 frets higher. The third degree would be 2 frets higher. The fourth degree would be only 1 fret higher. The fifth degree would be 2 frets higher. The sixth degree would be 2 frets higher. The seventh degree would be 2 frets higher. And the octave would be 1 fret higher. Now, you can build chords, 3-note chords called triads, on each degree, each note of the scale, of the major scale. And the way that you do that is you start with a note of the scale, skip a note, take the next note of the scale, skip a note, take the next note of the scale. So I've built a triad, a chord, on the first degree of the scale, which is, in this case, C. What I've played here is actually a C major chord, C, E, G. The first degree chord in any major scale is a major chord. I can build a chord on the second degree of the scale as well. In this case, since I'm dealing with the C major scale, the next note is D. Now keep in mind that I'm working with the C major scale still, even though I'm playing a D. I'm not working with the D major scale, but the notes of the C major scale. So if I want to build a chord on the second note of the C major scale, second degree, D, I use the same method. I take a note, skip a note, take a note, skip a note, take a note. So I end up with this chord. That chord happens to be a D minor chord. The second degree chord in any major scale is a minor chord. And I can go through the other degrees of the scale building triads. What I would recommend you do is memorize the types of chords at each degree of the scale, of the major scale. So remember that the first degree chord, the 1 chord, is always major. Remember that the second chord, as I said before, is always minor. The 3 chord is minor. The 4 chord is major. The 5 chord is major. The 6 chord is minor. And that's really all you need to memorize for popular music, for most folk songs or folk rock songs, that sort of thing. The 7th degree chord, the 7 chord, is diminished. But as I said, you can forget about that for now. What might be helpful is if you group the major and minor chords in your mind together. So the 1, the 4, and the 5 are major, and the 2, the 3, and the 6 are minor. Knowing the chord degrees of a major scale can be very beneficial because it can help you know which chords to expect to find in a given song. If you're trying to play a song by ear, figure out what the chords are, or if you're writing a song, you'll have a sense of which chords are at your disposal if you know the key that you're in. So if you were playing a song in the key of E major, you would know that you could expect to find any of the following chords in the song. The 1 chord, E major, the 2 chord, F sharp minor, the 3 chord, G sharp minor, the 4 chord, A major, the 5 chord, B major, or B dominant 7, and the 6th chord, C sharp minor. Keep in mind, however, that songs can have chords in them that don't fit in their keys. If you're ever playing with a group of musicians and somebody shouts out that the song is in the key of C, for example, and it's a 6-2-5 chord progression, then you'll know that the first chord in the progression is A minor, the second chord, the 2 chord, is D minor, and the 5 chord is G major.